Welcome to Guyana News Updates, your essential source for comprehensive insights into the latest happenings across Guyana. We provide up-to-the-minute reports and in-depth analyses, drawing from the most relevant information to keep you fully informed. Our coverage spans a broad spectrum of topics shaping the nation's future, including the dynamic political landscape, especially as Guyana approaches the September 1st general and regional elections. We delve into the campaigns, such as the We Invest in Nationhood, WIN Party's plans to cut government waste, reduce VAT from 14% to 10%, and decrease PAYE by 5%. WIN also aims to build a modern senior citizen home and upgrade Stabroek and Bourda markets. Additionally, we examine the Forward Guyana Movement's, FGM, Purple Contract, which addresses crucial issues like underemployment and unemployment among youths, as well as poverty, inequality, and corruption. FGM intends to strategically invest in agriculture, tourism, technology, and manufacturing to generate new jobs. Crucial discussions surrounding election integrity, including the Guyana Elections Commission's, GECOM, recent vote against requiring voters to lodge their phones before casting ballots, while still warning that taking a photograph of one's ballot is illegal. GECOM emphasized that the Representation of the People's Act prohibits sharing information about one's vote or influencing others to display their ballot paper. We also highlight the importance of ballot secrecy and incidents like the clash between WIN and People's Progressive Party/Civic, PPP/C, representatives at the Ethnic Relations Commission's Code of Conduct signing. WIN accused the PPP/C of violations, including discrediting their presidential candidate Azruddin Mohammed, targeted cyberbullying, and destruction of campaign materials. Key developments in U.S.-Guyana relations, featuring statements from U.S. Ambassador Nicole Theriault. Learn how Guyanese citizens are not expected to be affected by a proposed U.S. bond of up to $15,000 for visitors to the United States, as the ambassador stated that Guyana's overstay rate is not problematic, despite a 2023 report showing a 5.59% overstay rate with 3,186 Guyanese overstaying their B1/B2 visas. We also report on the ambassador's clarification that the U.S. played no part in local banks' decisions to cut ties with WIN candidates associated with U.S.-sanctioned businessman Azruddin Mohammed. Ambassador Theriault noted that the Office of Foreign Assets Control, OFAC sanctions pertain solely to the U.S. government and businesses within the United States, and local banks' decisions were entirely independent. Furthermore, she stated that Azruddin Mohammed's election to government or the National Assembly could effectively change how the U.S. government conducts business with Guyana. She maintained that the U.S. has no interest in interfering in Guyana's elections. At Guyana News Updates, we are committed to providing you with accurate, insightful, and timely news. Don't miss out on vital information that impacts Guyana's path forward. Subscribe now to Guyana News Updates and stay informed. The discussion begins now.
Welcome to another deep dive. We take a pile of information, basically, and pull out the key nuggets for you.
Yeah, distilling it down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Today, we're jumping into the election scene in Guyana. It's pretty tumultuous right now.
It really is.
We're using articles from News Source Guyana, all very fresh, August 5th and 6th, 2025.
Right, so really current snapshots.
Our mission: cut through the noise, figure out who's who, what's what, and, connect the dots. It's definitely a dynamic time there. Okay, let's unpack this.
It's a fascinating moment, definitely. And these sources, they really paint a picture of all the different pressures and talks happening right now.
Yeah.
What's really striking, I think, is how things that seem separate, international relations, local bank stuff, election rules, they're all tangled up as the country heads towards these elections.
Absolutely. And let's start with something really interesting. Touches on money, travel, and maybe a bit of a misconception. This proposed U.S. visa bond program. You might have heard about it, but how it actually affects Guyanese citizens. Well, it might not be what you think.
Right. Let's get into that.
So the big news first. U.S. Ambassador Nicole Theriault. She confirmed Guyana will not be affected.
Okay.
By this proposed U.S. pilot program, the one requiring a bond, could be up to $15,000 for business and tourist visas.
Right, that's the program targeting certain countries.
Yeah, so you might be wondering, okay, why not Guyana?
And that's the key question, isn't it? Why the exemption? Well, Ambassador Theriault made it pretty clear. She said Guyana's overstay rate is, and this is the quote, not problematic.
Not problematic. Interesting phrasing.
It is. And if you look at the bigger picture, this whole pilot program, it's meant for countries with high overstay rates, consistently high, and maybe weaker document security.
Okay.
Now, for context, back in 2023, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, they reported Guyana had an overstay rate of about 5.59%.
Right, I saw that number. 3,186 people, B1, B2 visas.
Exactly. But according to the ambassador, that figure, in the context of this specific program, it's just not considered problematic.
So it's all relative to the program's criteria.
Precisely. It signals maybe a certain level of U.S. confidence, or at least that Guyana doesn't meet that particular threshold for concern right now.
Fascinating. Okay, so no bond needed for Guyanese visitors. Good news for them.
Oh.
But staying on the theme of money and international links, let's pivot.
Okay.
There's this big local banking story brewing. Several Guyanese banks have cut ties with candidates from the WIN party. That's We Invest in Nationhood.
Right, WIN. And there's been chatter, hasn't there, about whether the U.S. government was somehow involved.
Exactly. Especially since WIN's presidential candidate, Azrudin Mohammed, he was sanctioned by the U.S. last year.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is where Ambassador Thurea was very direct.
How so?
She stated very clearly that the decision by the local bank she named Demerara Bank, GBTI, Citizens Bank, NBS, to stop services for WIN candidates was, her words, entirely independent.
Entirely independent.
Yeah, and had no association with the U.S. government or its OFAC sanctions, Office of Foreign Assets Control.
Right.
She basically said, look, OFAC sanctions are a U.S. thing for business in the U.S. And she added the embassy wasn't consulted, has no opinion on the matter.
So a very clear line drawn there.
A very clear line.
Okay, so let's pull back for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Azrudin Mohammed, his father, their businesses sanctioned last year. Claims of tax evasion, gold under declaration, the things he denies, by the way.
Correct. He refutes those claims.
And now he's running for president in the September 1st elections.
Which brings us to the implications, right? What does this all mean? Ambassador Thurea, she repeated something she'd said before.
Which was?
That if Mohammed were elected to government or the National Assembly, it could cause the U.S. government to change how it does business with Guyana.
Okay, could cause. That sounds like a warning, doesn't it?
Well, she framed it carefully, said she was simply stating facts based on what's happened in other countries where OFAC-sanctioned people ended up in government.
So, precedent, not interference.
That was the message. She stressed the U.S. has no interest in interfering in Guyana's elections, that it respects Guyana as a sovereign country.
It's a fine line, though.
It absolutely is. It highlights that tension between internal politics and international, especially economic, relationships.
Definitely something to watch. Okay, let's shift gears now. Away from the international stuff, more towards the nuts and bolts of the election itself.
Right, GETOM, the Guyana Elections Commission.
Exactly. They made some interesting calls lately about voters, specifically about cell phones and keeping ballots secret.
Yes, the cell phone debate. So GCOM actually voted against making voters hand over their phones before they vote.
Oh, really? They can take them into the booth?
Seems so. But, and this is crucial, they did agree that taking a photo of your ballot paper is illegal. Absolutely illegal.
Okay, so no ballot selfies.
Pretty much. And there's a serious concern behind this, you know? Vincent Alexander, he's a long-serving election commissioner. He voiced worries that allowing phones in the booth makes vote buying easier. The idea being, someone could be pressured to take a photo to prove how they voted before they get paid.
Wow, yeah, that definitely raises red flags about election integrity. Are there specific laws against that kind of thing? Taking pictures, sharing your vote?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
GECOM pointed to the Representation of the People's Act and the Criminal Law Offenses Act.
Okay.
It spells out that it's an offense to share info about your vote, or to try and get a voter to show their ballot, or obviously to offer money or gifts for a vote.
And the penalty?
A fine and potentially up to 6 months in prison. APNU, a Partnership for National Unity, also really hammered this point, the need to guarantee secrecy and actually enforce these laws.
So the rule is clear, but the enforcement, especially with phones, that's the challenge.
That's always the tricky part, isn't it? Especially with tech making things harder to track sometimes. It's like a constant adjustment between safeguards and new ways to cheat.
Right. Okay, so from rules to, well, outright political clashes. Things apparently got pretty intense at an event, the Ethnic Relations Commission's Code of Conduct signing.
Yes, reports suggest it was quite confrontational, specifically between the WHAN party and the governing PPPC, the People's Progressive Party Civic.
What happened?
Well, it sounds like it kicked off almost immediately. The WWIN representative, Hana Mohammed, stood up and accused the PPPC of basically breaking the very code they were all there to sign.
Oof. Strong start. What were her specific complaints?
She listed quite a few, said there was constant and deliberate discrediting of Osred and Mohammed via smear campaigns and state-affiliated messaging.
Okay.
Also mentioned targeted cyberbullying, harassment, and stalking, particularly aimed at WIN women, especially Muslim female leaders.
Serious allegations.
Very. Plus destroying campaign materials and even exploiting kids by having them in party gear at rallies. She basically demanded clear standards and accountability.
Wow. How did the PPPC take that?
Their representative, PPP Executive Secretary Zulfikar Mustafa, he pushed back hard, called her statements untruths.
Flat denial.
Pretty much. He emphasized that parties shouldn't divide this nation or bully people or impose our own will, stressed the PPPC's commitment to an inclusive, respectful campaign.
Focusing on
ideas, development, the best interests of all Guyanese, regardless of ethnicity, religion, whatever. And he really underlined that political parties need to lead by example.
So a very public airing of grievances and defenses.
Exactly. It really highlights the tension and the high stakes in this election cycle. The divisions seem quite deep.
Clearly. Okay, so beyond the fights and the rules, what are these parties actually offering the people? Let's look at some platforms. How about the Forward Guyana Movement, FGM?
Right, FGM. They just launched their manifesto. They're calling it the Purple Contract.
The Purple Contract, okay. And who's leading them?
Their presidential candidate is Amanza Walton Desire. She's actually a former MP from the APNU plus AFC coalition, the previous government.
Ah, okay, so what's their pitch?
They say they're fighting to dismantle a political cartel. Strong words.
Definitely.
Also to restore the dignity of this nation and empower people. They point to high youth unemployment, a mismatch between skills and jobs.
Common problems in many places.
True. Their plan involves investing strategically in areas beyond oil. So agriculture, tourism, tech, manufacturing, trying to create new jobs, diversify the economy.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Yeah. They also talk about tackling crime, safety, poverty, inequality, corruption. And they make a point of rejecting, quote, the politics of division and exclusion. That political cartel line is clearly aimed at voter frustration with the established parties.
Got it. Okay, and finally, let's circle back to the WIN party, Esrudin Mohammed. Despite the banking issues we talked about, he sounds pretty confident.
Oh, very confident of victory, based on reports. His platform seems largely focused on improving daily life by cutting government waste.
How so?
He criticizes the current government for too much pomp and ceremony, wasting tax money on events, being involved in shady deals.
In the examples.
He mentioned things like state house events costing millions while, as he put it, children have to go to bed hungry. Pretty evocative language.
So what's he promising instead?
More disposable income for people, for one. Cutting government spending like fewer vehicles for officials. Building a modern home for seniors to replace the old Palms geriatric home.
Okay, social spending too?
Yes, and big upgrades for Stabroek and Bourda markets. And on cost of living, this is a big one, he promises to cut VAT from 14% down to 10%.
Wow, 4% cut.
And cut PAYE, the income tax, by 5%. Plus, major investment in solar and wind to fix the country's pretty persistent power problem.
Those are some significant promises. VAT and pay cuts especially.
They are, and WN says they'll contest in all 10 regions. Of course, the big question with those tax cuts is how they'd balance the budget, fund the spending, especially with the current oil revenue situation.
Right. Fiscal implications are huge there.
Yeah.
Okay, wow, we've really covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From U.S. diplomatic statements, bank decisions, election rules, right down to party promises on VAT and fixing the lights.
Yeah, you really see how many different threads are weaving together in this election.
So many forces at play.
Indeed. And if you zoom out, look at the bigger picture, it just hammers home how interconnected everything is.
How so?
Well, how a country handles its internal politics, its economy, its relationships with other countries. It all feeds into the story of its future, shapes it in very real ways.
Absolutely. So for you, our listeners, taking this deep dive with us, as Guyana moves towards this election, maybe chew on this thought. How do these specific details, like the exact words an ambassador uses about a visa policy or a bank deciding who it serves or promise to cut taxes, How do these things not just sway an election, but actually shape the day-to-day lives and the future hopes of everyone in the country?
Yeah. What are the ripple effects?
Exactly. What are the ripple effects of these seemingly separate issues for the people of Guyana long after the votes are counted? Something to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Until our next deep dive.